Even though I refused to watch the first Amazing Spider-Man film, I have to say that after watching this film, this actually wasn't that bad. What's up again, guys? Brian here at 3TR, and I just got back from seeing The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and here's my official review on it. Now, this movie is directed by Mark Webb, and it has the really brilliant cast of Andrew Garfield, Emma Stone, Jamie Foxx, Dane DeHaan, and a whole bunch of other really great actors. Now, the plot itself takes place after the events of the first Amazing Spider-Man, in which Peter Parker / Andrew Garfield is kind of having problems trying to keep his promise to Gwen Stacy's father about trying to stay away, and he's going through these kind of mood swings where he wants to stay away because he doesn't want to get hurt, but he can't help himself while he's still doing his Spider-Man job, and the city is really enjoying him having around. Until one fateful day during a little chase scene involving a big truck carrying a whole bunch of plutonium, he saves Max Dillon, who's played by Jamie Foxx, and then Max Dillon is basically this really obsessive fan, and he gets into an accident at Oscorp, which then turns him into Electro. And at the same time, his good friend Harry Osborn, played by Dane DeHaan, is going through a bit of a sickness which is going to kill him like he killed his father, which, trust me, none of these are spoilers if you've seen enough of the trailers. And what happens is that Dane DeHaan's character, Harry Osborn, believes that if he can get a hold of Spider-Man somehow, he can then maybe cure himself. And so he decides he's going to team up with Electro, and they're both going to take Spider-Man down. And that's really everything I can tell you without spoiling too much. And that's really hard to say because this movie does a lot of really good, interesting ideas, but it also does a lot of things wrong. Now, to go with the good part of this movie is that the main set of cast members are handled very well. Even though I myself, like I said before, have not seen The Amazing Spider-Man 1, I can say that after seeing this particular film, I'm agreeing with everybody. I do believe Andrew Garfield is a much better Peter Parker and Spider-Man than Tobey Maguire did. He absolutely was able to project the main character element of Peter Parker himself as he's trying to balance his superhero life as Spider-Man with his personal life and trying to do what's best for everyone, including himself. And I believe Andrew Garfield really got even the emotional scenes done right very well. I also liked Emma Stone's portrayal as Gwen Stacy. I absolutely think that Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone have far better chemistry than Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst in the original Sam Raimi films. They have really, really, really great chemistry. And I also thought that Dane DeHaan really was a very menacing Harry Osborn, much more darker than James Franco was. And this movie also had a good amount of action. It is visually stunning. Some of the music was epic, even though I think some of us, including myself, is getting a little bit tired that Hans Zimmerman is doing the score for all these superhero films. I think at some point it'll get to a point in time where maybe all of his music across these films kind of has the same kind of sound, but hopefully that day never comes. And in a whole, it does do a reasonably good job towards the end setting things up for the Sinister Six movie. Now, the problem that this film has more, not just to do with the story itself and how it's told, but the marketing. I have to tell you, I think Sony really dropped the ball, really showing so much of this film in the months leading up to this movie's release, because I can guarantee you this. If you've seen enough of the trailers, you've probably seen really all of the highlights of this film. You've seen a good portion of all the action scenes, and you've even seen the final shot of this film. I mean, I was just looking back at some of the trailers before I started filming this, and I couldn't believe how many times that final shot actually shows up in the promotional ads. Another problem that I had with this film is that the movie has a very difficult time really connecting all of its story arches. There's a lot of main story elements that are being projected over the course of this film, and the movie has trouble really transitioning from one to the other flawlessly. And sorry, that's just my dog over here. There's a certain story arc that deals with Peter Parker's parents, and I was just really confused why this wasn't in the first film. Even though I know exactly what happens in that first film, this particular story element involving his parents would have made more sense to be in the first film, because then it actually would have allowed for a certain scene to play out differently in this film, and I think it would have had a much more different effect between two characters. Another problem that I had was the portrayal of Jamie Foxx's character, Max Dillon. I was really looking forward to being really sympathetic for this character, and I found out that that's not quite the case, and I'm really not sure who I need to blame for this. I've heard a lot of people make comparisons to this, like, the Joel Schumacher villains, and I can't believe I'm saying this, which I will talk about more about Max Dillon in my spoiler review of Amazing Spider-Man 2, but Jim Carrey's Riddler is actually handled a lot better than Jamie Foxx's Max Dillon, and that is even hard for me to say, despite the fact that I really enjoyed Batman Forever. And I think the last big issue that I had is that the action scenes, even though they're visually great to look at, they're not really balanced, and they're not well constructed, and they kind of end abruptly. I'm like, just when you start to get into the action scene and you want to think that, you know, I'm going to be watching this again when I finally get this movie in my hands, they kind of just end, and you're like, that's how this fight ends? And it does this with every single action scene. And the small bit of time that Paul Giamatti plays as Rhino is like completely pointless. I mean, the whole idea of having 3 villains in one film is not even present here. You'll get like maybe 1.5 villains in this film. Why he's in this film, I have no idea. I think it would have been better if we had been introduced to him in the Sinister Six movie coming out after this film. So even though this movie has a lot of problems, it does do a lot of great things. And even though, personally, it's not better than Spider-Man 2, it's better than the rest of the Spider-Man films. So it is better than 1, 3, and I'm sure The Amazing Spider-Man, which does make it my second favorite Spider-Man film of all time. But it just has too many problems to really make it a great superhero film on its own. Which is why, just to be nice, I'm going to give this movie a B-. I would absolutely, you guys, check this movie out when you get a chance to see this in theaters, but please be warned that it's probably not going to be as great as some of you were hoping it would be. If you like this movie review, feel free to like, comment down below, and please subscribe to track me my future movie reviews. And please join me in my next video where I will be having a spoiler-filled review of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I'll see you next time.